back to Building a Fighter. My name is Dr. Austin Shane, sports chiropractor in Scottsdale, Arizona. With me, as always, badass strength coach in Denver, Colorado, Alex Friedman. Today, we're doing the second part of why combat athletes need strength and conditioning. It is going to be why strikers need strength and conditioning. And Alex, as a strength coach, why do strikers need strength and conditioning?
No, this is a playground for strength coaches, right? Looking at our velocity and time curve, force velocity curve. Anyway,
Beat it, nerd.
strength, yeah, strength underlines power, right? When we're talking about striking, yes, we need all the technical, tactical details that go along with that. But like, what's your ultimate equalizer? It's your biggest tool in your arsenal as a striker is power, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have power, we have to build strength behind that, right? The ability to produce force is underlining the ability to produce force fast,
Yeah.
right? So producing force is strength, producing force fast is power, right? So we need the strength under the hood, right? The engine in order to get the power through your hands.
But Alex, I thought lifting weights makes you slower.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. Not in a sports performance model, right? Like if you're in a bodybuilding gym and doing shit that you don't know what you're doing, or listening just to the guy that's jacked, maybe you're gonna lose some mobility and therefore get more muscle or build muscle mass, not necessarily strength, and then power. So all these things can be really dialed down. Like muscle mass is different from strength, strength is different from power, strength is different from strength endurance, right? There's all these different qualities. And so, as a strength coach or as a coach, period, you need to know what actually matters, right? Strength for me on a sports performance side, neurological strength is what I'm after. That's what I need, especially in a weight class based sport, right? And what what a lot of strength coaches say is true, mass moves mass, right? You want
Mm-hmm.
to get stronger, get bigger. Sure, that works. But weight class sport, that's not an option for us, right? So I'm not coaching my athletes to do high volume, to eat a ton, to really go really hard after the hypertrophy. I'm coaching my athletes to how to better organize their body, how to send the nervous stimulus of strength and be solid through a lift, and then get 3 to 5 quality reps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can build some nervous system strength. That nervous system strength is what can be transferred into power once we start training that way and get it into your hands.
Right. And the age old like saying was like boxers are going to slow down when they lift, when we're lifting heavy, shit like that. And what I want to kind of get across is there's different ways to lift weights. So that little graph that Alex was talking about at the beginning, that force velocity curve, like you can lift weights fast as well. The speed or the rate at which you develop the force is extremely important as you're lifting these said weights, right? There's all these different ways to make sure that we're maximizing not just the strength adaptations of the strength and conditioning, but also getting some sort of power adaptation as well. So we're combining and trying to make our muscles, while lifting relatively heavy weight, move as fast as possible and accomplish the goal or the exercise in front of you.
Yeah, and what I think would be beneficial is if we can walk through, and I like landmine punches as a good segue for this, but let's talk
Yep.
about going all the way through like a periodized approach or a programming perspective, going through that force velocity curve and how we can get from building that strength to building the power, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
quickly for me, on a landmine punch, right? If you're holding a landmine in your single arm, whatever you're pressing, you can utilize that all the way up and down the force velocity curve. You can do it for strength. You can do it for hypertrophy. You can do it for strength speed. You can do it for speed strength. You can do it for maximum power. You can do it for strictly speed. You can do it reactively, right? So I like it because it's a versatile tool. Now, how would I progress that, or how can we take that all the way down to, let's say we're 6 months away from a fight, right? What are we going to do
Mm-hmm.
then, and how are we going to lead that into making me more powerful, quote unquote? Um, a lot of times where I start is biomechanics, right? Let's work on a strict press. You're standing either stagger stance or square stance. I got the landmine in my hand. I'm pressing it overhead. What do our shoulder mechanics look like? How are we getting through the motion efficiently? Are we stable through the rest of our body, through our core, through our feet? Are we grounded? Do we have good body organization, right? So that's your like anatomical structuring phase.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, or anatomical adaptation, excuse me. So we're figuring out, how do I move effectively through this? How can I create adaptations to move effectively through this? From there, we progress into a work capacity set, right? I'm going to do 8 to 10 reps, decently high weights, enough. Like, this is kind of in the mud. This is where it's really hard to work through. That eighth, ninth rep, you're like grinding through it, just barely getting it up, right? Work capacity. Can I do this for a lot of reps, and can I maintain that biomechanical efficiency that we've already built, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm building capacity. I'm able to throw more of those punches the same way over time, even when I get fatigued, right? From there, we get a little more into strength. We're going to segue now to that neurological strength that I'm talking about. We're getting to our sixes, to our fives, to our fours, and it's all about, can I muster enough strength and coordinate my whole body to stay stable, to press through the bar with a maximal load on there, right? So again, this is a heavy ass set, 5 reps, but every rep I'm trying to push hard, right? I would argue you can even go into like threes with this, or twos. But it's like, can I put myself, my body together to make this happen? Do I have the neurological capacity to press this hard away with heavy weights? Right? That strength is underpinning and gives me the force capabilities to produce a lot of force, because we need a lot of force. That's half of our power equation, right? From there, we can go what I call strength speed, right? And the order of those words is just a way to break up power, but strength being first, speed being second. We're going to lower the weight a little bit from our strength, but we're going to start to move the bar a little bit faster, just a little bit faster, not a lot faster, right? So here I like a push or push press, right? Or a stagger stance push press. You get a little dip with your legs, but it's still a heavy enough load that you have to finish pushing through your arm and like just barely get it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not making it reactive or jumping at all. You just get a little dip, finish with the press. There's still a little bit of a grunt at the end of the bar, but it's not moving so fast that anything's rattling or shaking, right? From there, we go to speed strength. Again, right, speed being first, strength being second. We're going to lower the weight more, increase the speed more. And this is where I want a little pop on the bar, right? We dip into our hips, we punch through the bar, and then we hear it rattle a little bit at
Yeah,
the
you
top.
want to hear that clank at the bottom of the landmine.
And that's one of your best cues if you're a strength coach. Like, I want to hear this rep. Or when we do play metrics, I say I don't want to hear their landing, but that's besides the point. So speed, strength, little dip. Now I want to see the pop. Now I want to see the bar go really fast. I want to hear it move a lot. And I want my athlete to feel like, whoa, that felt powerful, right? Um, then last one we can get into is like speed, and I look at this as almost like a plyometric. This is where I get to a split jerk, I get to a jerk period. So difference between a push press and a jerk: you dip a little bit on the push press, but you finish with the arms. On the jerk, you dip a little bit, you push into the bar, but ultimately use your body to drop under the bar, right? So it's almost like a speed based plyometric where I'm both pushing hard but also moving my body in a quick fashion to get under the bar, right? Same mechanism as a clean. So now we're in the speed and we're working for a jerk, right? And you could take all these different movements up and down the force velocity curve, but now we're working on speed. So I'm trying to be really fast with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? From there, I go into reaction. So it's like we do a split jerk repeat where I dip, punch, dip, punch, dip, punch, dip, punch, dip, punch, right? And so now we're building capacity in the speed realm. Can we
Mm-hmm.
stay speedy and powerful into the third, fourth, fifth round, right? So again, I know that was pretty isolated, but that's how I would push somebody along the continuum of, here's why strength underpins your power, right? We need to know the pattern, we need to have capacity in it, we need to be stronger in it, then we need to transfer that power, that strength, excuse me, into power and ultimately speed, and then speed capacity.
Right. And what's cool about that is once you get past all of those steps that Alex is talking about, then you can get into the training called like contrast training, where you're training the force and the velocity coincidingly with each other to maximize the power benefits. So that would be like you do that heavy landmine press. So like right in that strength phase. And then right after that, you're going to offload the bar and go right into, say, a push press or the jerk, right?
Yeah. Dude, one I've been utilizing a lot recently is that landmine strict press, really heavy,
Yep.
and then you go right to the med ball wall and you shot
Mm-hmm.
put throw a med ball into the wall, right? And
Yep.
so again, throwing a med ball for anybody that's listening is speed, right? You're not gonna hit strength, speed, or any other power based capacity throwing a med ball. Throwing a
What if
med
I'm
ball is
throwing a
going to be
50-pound med ball?
Yeah, well, I don't know who's doing that. Um, but really heavy press with the landmine. Then you go to the med ball wall, shot put. So my elbows up. It's almost like you're throwing a cross or throwing a two, and then you punch into the wall.
Yep.
That's been a really key contrast set of mine.
Yeah. And so sticking with that theme, right? That can apply to any exercise that we're kind of going after. That's going to be a major, I guess, a major pattern exercise. So our hinges, our squats, our pushes, our pulls, all of those. We can go up and down the force velocity curve and help train specific adaptations that may be missing when we did our assessment for our fighters. So like when we do our building a fighter assessment, we have specific tests that are going after strength, that are going after strength speed, that are going
Mm-hmm.
after power, that are going after up and down that curve to see where are you lacking and what's that independent variable that we're going after to try to elevate your overall equation.
Right. And we've been talking about a landmine punch a lot, but for striking, honestly, that might be one of the lesser important um, exercises to do because ultimately you throw a punch with your hand, right? But you don't produce a whole lot of power through your shoulder and into your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Where you produce the power is pushing through the ground and then that ground reactive force transferring all the way up through your body into your hands, right? So things like a trap bar deadlift, things like back squats, front squats, things like split squats or plyometrics, like those all may apply more because that has a lot more input from the ground,
Right.
right? And so then you can work your whole body systemically. That's the next point with this contrast training or with any type of strength training. Really, we're sticking to compound movements to use multiple joints that are more or less whole body lifts, right? Because that's what we're going to get the neurological stimulus from. You're not going to get a big neurological stimulus from a bicep curl, right? Or from like a face pull, right? Those are more
Right.
specifically biomechanical or mechanical based exercises.
Yeah.
Um, so use some of that contrast training on your compound lifts, specifically like a trap bar deadlift. And I think we'd be remiss, Austin, if we didn't talk about rotational power and rotational strength when we
Yeah.
talk about striking.
I mean, and again, it's up and down the curve, right? It doesn't have to just be power. When we think rotation, so many people think power, power, power. And you
Right.
can do rotational based strength exercises as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll have athletes do like a max lunge is a good example, where you're
Yeah.
stepping up with a heavy ass sandbag. I'm talking like 80 to 100 pounds plus, and you're going up over the other knee, rotating as you go through your trunk.
Yeah.
So that's a way to build strength. And we always go in rotational exercises, at least for me, I go rotational capacity, rotational strength, rotational power, just like Alex does for every other pattern that you go after.
Yeah, and that's the one. You're exactly right. Those are the two I see. I see a lot of rotational capacity, and then I see a lot of rotational power. You
Yep.
don't ever really see the rotational strength, right? Because that's a little bit more complex or in the
Which is
weeds.
identifies a weak link in a lot of programming. Because
Right.
if it was happening, guess what? With social media availability, we'd know about it right now.
Yeah. And then you can get into a lot of your anti rotational movements too. And the antis are good because they force you to hold static positions,
Yep.
right? The static positions through your trunk are what transfer force from the ground to your hand, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that the new school concept approaching to training the core is that your core doesn't generate movement, it prevents power loss or prevents force loss,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I'm throwing my cross again, if I have a core that's pretty flaccid and all over the place and it's not holding its form, there's not going to be a whole lot of power coming through
Yep.
that, right? If I can push through the ground, I activate my trunk musculature to hold me in a good posture and biomechanically correct way, then I can actually transfer some force into my shoulder and then ultimately my hand. So things like Palloff presses, things like just holding that max lunge, right? If you can lunge back, hold that sandbag or the kettlebell off to the side there and just isometrically load that, that's a really hard exercise.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up a good point too, that strength and conditioning in and of itself is just learning new skills, right? It's learning new movement skills.
Right.
A movement skill that's extremely important in striking and can be mimicked and trained in the strength and conditioning setting is the ability to be rigid, but then also the ability to be like free flowing or loose,
Right.
right? We know when we're throwing a punch that there's a double impulse theory through Stu McGill's work where you have to contract at a maximal rate. The only way to develop that power or really that speed, if you will, going towards the opponent is for you to relax then as low as humanly possible to develop that whip of a punch. And then
Mm-hmm.
right on impact, as you touch that other person's face or body, whatever you're punching, you have to be as rigid as possible again to then transmit the force and the power that you developed into the other person, right?
Yeah.
This is a trainable skill. And one of my favorite ways to do it is going to be like a landmine punch is a good example. Med ball is a little bit different because you don't necessarily need to have that end range. I like closed chain movements for this.
Well, yeah, for that specifically, I like the med ball, and I really preach the stopping force that it takes
Yeah,
on a med ball, right? Like if you're
like
throwing your two, if you put the brakes on with your front foot really hard, then you can what's the word, enhance that whip like effect, right? When I throw my
exactly.
two, I really stomp on my front foot. But the movement I was thinking, like you said, a landmine jerk, it personifies the double impulse theory really well,
Yeah.
right? Because I have to be braced to hold this weight that's on my shoulder, right? Let's say we're doing 25, 35 pounds,
Yep.
right? I have to be braced. In my dip position, I'm still braced and I'm still building up a counter motion, a stretch reflex uh, cycle, stretch shortening cycle. Oh my goodness. Um, but then I have to relax as I initiate the punch, as I initiate the jerk. I have to relax and almost like let my body float and drop under the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I catch it overhead, I have to find that rigidity again.
Yep.
Right?
And my favorite one is a kettlebell swing.
Sure.
And you can do this. The cool thing about this one is you can do it in rotation as
Yeah.
well. So, like when I do a kettlebell swing, right, you have to initiate your contraction from when you hike that football, and then you go up to the top. It's an active top, not just a lacking top. So you need to be able to stay tight at the top to then initiate the swing phase back down, initiate the kettlebell swing again at the bottom, and you're going to go rep after rep after rep of double impulse over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. It's a wild thought that like in the middle of the kettlebell swing, while the kettlebell is actually swinging, you're relaxed. You're
Yeah.
not doing anything.
Well, and
Right?
like the coolest thing is when you see like I was kettlebell swings on my mind because I was just teaching somebody how to do it today.
Right. Yeah.
So when you see somebody that doesn't know how to do a kettlebell swing, there's no float phase at all, and it's just like when you see somebody, sorry, when you see somebody punch and they don't know how to punch, there's no
Right.
float phase at all. It's just blocky as shit. It looks
Mm-hmm.
rigid. They don't know how to actually let things go. They're just staying
Yeah.
trying to stay in control of it the entire time. And
Yep.
it's a similar parallel that's again can be trained. Because if
Yeah,
you
dude.
learn that trunk stability, relaxation pattern, that can be mimicked and that can assist with other patterns that are similar.
And dude, I'll tell you the number one example is, and I know you'll like it, but the clean. The
Yeah,
clean is such a hard movement because
100%.
again, there's a hard weight in front of you, and I think the bilateral movements are actually a little bit more complex than unilateral movements. But when I'm doing clean, that's what I was teaching somebody to do today:
Yeah.
is how to relax during the pull phase of their clean,
Don't
right?
just
Where they're
reverse curl it up.
exactly so trying to relax and drop under the bar rapidly, um, which is a big double impulse. But it is a scary thought in general to be weightless or to kind of let go in the middle of
Yeah.
that. But like you said, it's a necessary thing, and it's a lot of times a thing that happens um, automatically for somebody that's been striking their whole life.
Right.
But you think about any wrestler as they start to strike. Like wrestling is tension, 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 constant. If I give somebody a relaxation or any room to breathe, I'm losing, right?
Yeah.
Striking is like how often can I be relaxed? It's almost a polar opposite, right? How often can I be relaxed, and then can I find the right timing to stiffen up real hard?
Right.
And so it's an interesting parallel into that and the weight room.
Hold on. Do you think so? Do you think that you can train timing in the strength conditioning sense?
Yeah,
Like we were
you
just
can.
talking about stability, like stability and stability
Mhm.
patterns, and I guess that's the basis of reactive training.
Yeah.
But have you seen good studies on like these new reactors?
I know some of them are backed as far as cognition, but they have a lot more to do with fatigue than like
Yeah.
reaction time, right? It's like, can you still mentally process after you've been through a hard bout of exercise?
Yeah.
Um, like which is essentially what we do is like, can you relax and take instruction in the corner after a round, right? I've seen a lot of those type of studies as far as like strict performance on reaction time. I haven't seen too much of that stuff. And the stuff that is out there, because there's a lot out there, is mostly like marketing and proprietary stuff. It's not necessarily
Right.
strict performance
That's
studies.
that's what I've seen too, and I wish there was some more studies that would back it. Not
Yeah,
that I don't, I do think that they work.
yeah,
I don't have the, I guess, scientific literature backing to use
yeah.
them more than I do.
Well, I
I don't.
like to do it in a non high tech way, which is it was
Yeah.
really straightforward and simple, right? Like just simply adding stimulus, adding response, right? Like, and a lot of times in the weight room we stay very one to one. Okay, um, I tell you lift the bar, lift the bar. One stimulus, one reaction, right? Maybe now we look at the same amount of bar. It's like, all right, if I say go, you're gonna do a hang clean, and if I clap my hands, you're gonna do a deadlift, right? It's like simple things like that. Like I don't know if I'd actually use that example per se, but adding those reactions and building up those type of stimulus response situations can and help your reaction time because if we think about weight room to sport, it's going from one to one, do this thing, do it now, to sports like holy shit, there's so many things going on. I could do any of it, and then I probably won't do any of
Right.
it, right? And so in a setting that we have like a controlled weight room, I use this a lot in my agility drills, right? Like specifically with my youth athletes, like I'll build up one skill. Let's say we're gonna cut at a 45-degree angle. Let's learn how to cut a 45-degree angle really well. We're gonna do that, and then I'm going to teach you, can you do it so well that you can do it on response, right? So I'll clap my hand, cut at a 45-degree angle when I clap my hands, right? Can you do it on the one response? Then I'm going to add, okay, now you're facing me straight up. I'm going to point left to right. Can you do it on command? And can you choose a direction at the same time, right? Two responses at the same time to two different possible stimuli, right? So it's like it's going from that one to one to the two to one to the two to two to layering that way.
Right. And so, like, I'd like to agree. Like, it doesn't need to be super high tech. You don't have to have a synaptech to do that type of training. There's all these different ways. Like a guy that I've used down here with a couple of my fighters, his name's Jay Folko. Like, he does a lot of like he has playing cards that he'll show you,
Yeah.
and that's his neural cognitive drilling type stuff. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to like look at a playing card, memorize what's on the card, and then go about a different task. And it's a really cool concept to see because I think if certain patterns are put in place, or I guess if they're able to show precedent that it works, it could take over a good part of future training, especially in a gamification setting where you
Mm-hmm.
can use that as a session that's gamification. It's also a low intensity session, I guess, technically, depending upon how much stress it's going to put on the nervous system because it might fry the nervous system. But
Well, yeah, that's a lot of what like Austin Yoakum does when he was on our podcast, right? Talking, he
mhm,
they'll do like a heavy set of deadlifts, and then they go play soccer for like a minute
yeah,
interval or whatever. It's like play your sport and be in the middle of the dynamic, changing cognitive situation, and then go back and can you refocus to do the heavy thing,
yeah,
right? And I like that approach. That again, it, practice kind of leads science at this point
mhm.
for this stuff. But we've gotten off on a way big tangent
It's
on
okay.
how.
This is all about striking. And the reason why I
Yeah,
kept bringing it up is because one of the biggest things in striking is timing, right?
sure.
Timing's going to beat power because
Yeah,
timing's going to put it right where you need to. Think a Sean O'Malley knockout. Anybody that's
yeah,
long and wiry, that is going to beat power any day of the week because your timing can be pinpoint.
sure. But I mean, so the way I kind of segregate that in my head is the timing is going to be a lot more like skill and tactical based
Yeah,
training, right? I'm going to see my guy lean this way two or three times. Once I see that, then I can utilize it. What I'm going to train you and give you is the underlying speed to make that reaction happen in the window that you think it can happen.
right. And that's the point I'm trying to get across is that so many people are saying that what you're doing in the strength and conditioning setting is building the timing of what happens in the cage.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm giving you the underlying physical potential to
Yeah,
carry out your tactical skill,
exactly.
right?
And
And
it's
that's I think that's like the biggest red herring that I get is like, look at that guy. He doesn't lift at all, and he fucking knocks people out. He's super powerful,
Yeah.
right? And I see that a lot. But and to those points, I'm like, yeah, that absolutely happens. There are absolutely people that don't touch weights and have crazy power in their hands.
Yeah.
You know, I would argue that one, they're the exception, not the norm, and then two, if they did lift and did do strength and conditioning, that power would even be crazier.
Right. It's like the businesses that say, "And I did all this without ever having to spend $1 on marketing," and they like praise about that, like that's amazing. And
But
I'm like,
what
in
if
my
you
head, I'm
did?
literally thinking, I'm like, where would you be if you did spend $1 on marketing? Where would you be
Yeah,
if you did invest in that side? That's not
yeah.
a badge of honor. That's a badge of stupidity.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a lot about like the strength qualities and strength side of building power for striking athletes. What about conditioning and cardio? Because especially being a wrestler that has started to do a little bit more striking, that shit sucks. I
Oh
get
yeah, fucking keeping
so
your hands
tired,
up.
so tired striking. Um, what do you want to hit on with from the conditioning aspects? I got a couple of different ideas and ways to go, but
I
what's
mean,
on top of your head?
yeah, a major thing for me is isometric strength in certain patterns of being able to hold your arms up and then pairing
Sure.
that with some sort of power stimulus. So, like
Yeah.
doing like a carry, like a med ball carry, hold your hands out, hold your hands out, hold your hands out. And then when I say go, you drop the ball, do a few strikes, grab the ball back
Mhm.
up, carry, carry, carry. Like that's a good example of building the capacity you need for both areas and building the endurance
Mhm.
while you do it.
Absolutely, and like yeah, and you can combine that strength quality of isometric strength with some of the dynamic power things.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been doing a lot recently, and it was kind of spurred by I was training Alex Hernandez, and we were doing a lactic circuit, right? And I was
Mm-hmm.
pairing different movement patterns with my lactic circuit. I wasn't really consciously thinking about a superset like this, but we did like almost like an airdyne bike. Then we went to a bag carry, which bag is about 100 120 pounds,
Yeah.
right? And so we're isometrically squeezing and gripping the bag to carry it, and then we're going straight into shadow boxing, right? And he goes, what about if instead of like shadow boxing, we like did a sandbell punch and had to hold that up? And he's like, that would like toast. And I was like, you know what? That's exactly right. Like, because shadow boxing, you can be a lot more interpretive and like honestly lazy about, right? Like,
100%.
I'm not gonna throw that much volume because my arms are tired from holding the thing, right? So if I pair the carry with sandbell punch, now I'm forcing your arms to have some power and speed capacity after fatigue.
Yeah. And timing.
Yeah, yeah. Catching that and getting a good rhythm on the sandbell is like for me a bigger point than the shoulder fatigue that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like the isometric to some sort of power stimulus, lactic
Mm-hmm.
conditioning for the upper body as well. Which something, not that this is about strength conditioning or my field at all, but something that has helped to some of my athletes I was recommended for their personal situations has been like beta alanine supplementation
Mm-hmm.
for the muscle fatigue, like the lactic fatigue that you're going to be feeling, because it is a
Yeah,
lactic buffer. I'm sure
right.
I'm going to get ripped on this by Christina at some point
Yeah.
in time, but like that's something that I know has helped a lot of my athletes I work with when they supplement that in and to help take care of that lactic fatigue, and pairing that up with a good lactic conditioning programming is
Right.
going to help boost their levels up.
And I think specifically the reason you'll see a lot of benefit from that is that strikers a lot of times are unconditioned to lactic stimuli,
Correct. Yeah, it's
right?
like
Like
the
like
low hanging fruit.
yeah, like grapplers bathe in it, right?
Yeah.
Grapplers are in the lactic capacity aspect 100% of their sport, right? But strikers, like unless you're Muay Thai and you're clinching more than like 30 seconds, which sometimes, but you're not going to be really attuned to it. Um, yeah, then the going along with like the lactic capacity, I think about like power endurance or like speed endurance,
Mm-hmm.
right? We talked about this a little bit, but can I maintain the power in my hands all the way through like the end of the third round, right? Like your power is going to drop off with fatigue, period. But being able to train that is another trainable quality, right? It's like we're doing like I like alactic conditioning, like EMOMs for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, we could do. like a med ball repeat punch, right?
Right. Sand
They
bell.
do
I do sand bell punches.
sure, right? But it's like, all right, go ham for 6 to 10 seconds,
Mhm.
take 50 seconds off, right? And like the first two or three you do, you're gonna be like, what are we even doing? This is stupid easy, right? The
To
next three or four
12.
that you do, you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's and it's a lot of times it's called sprint repeatability and strength conditioning circuits, but we're not sprinting and fighting a whole lot.
No.
But
Well, hopefully
yeah,
you're not.
yeah, right. I think that can be incredibly important and is a trainable factor that doesn't often get trained in striking sessions.
True. So we've listed out all the different variables. We've talked about everything that I think is important. I don't know about you.
I got
Let's
one more.
well, okay. Well, fuck what you're saying. Um, let's make a no. Go for it.
um, um, God, extensive plyometrics.
Okay.
You're consistently bouncing. It's like jumping rope,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
consistently bouncing up and
No,
down on
I know
your.
what it is.
All right. Well, I'm explaining to the people.
Oh,
Still.
okay.
You're continuously bouncing up and down on your striking days. So to train that as a reliable capacity to enhance some tendon stiffness through things like ankle jumps, through some like reflexive drop jumps, through some things like that can increase the efficiency of that. So you're not getting as fatigued as often as you consistently bounce and bounce and bounce, and then again you can stay stiff and powerful longer into the fight. Like think about Conor McGregor, right? Like his open karate stance, he's constantly bouncing. It's Wonder Boy Thompson's a better example.
Right.
Constantly bouncing in and out, and like, and even in the fifth round, it doesn't look like his bounce has diminished,
Yeah.
right? And that's from him doing it so often, right? It's a conditioning, trainable quality.
True.
Okay,
And
short
that
aside.
leads me into what I want to talk about, which is we've talked about all the variables. Now, what's a sample day look like for a striking athlete? What would a workout look like?
All right. I mean, if we're talking striking athlete, like, again, my number one thing is timing of your fight, right? So let's just do a basic strength day. We're, 3
Yeah,
months out from your fight.
yeah. I was about to say
Um,
like 8 week. No, say 10 weeks out from the fight. You're
sure.
getting them. They took 2 weeks off right before they came to you, so they're fresh.
So yeah, active dynamic warm up, however you want to accomplish that, and then I'm probably starting in a concurrent
How long
phase,
should that take?
10 minutes maybe.
Yeah. And what should they hit?
I need something to get your heart rate up. So I mean, a lot of athletes that I have like to just jump on the bike for
Yeah.
3 minutes. You can hit
Jumping
like a
rope,
little bit of like
extensive
a
plyo built in.
there you go, jumping rope. I do sometimes like a locomotion circuit, so like jog, karaoke, backpedal, stuff like that. Um, Something in general, and like sometimes if you're getting fancy with it, you can mold your like biomechanic screen slash movement prep into your heart rate elevation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like a lot of times I would have athletes hit some dynamic mobility, and then I just layer it so um, I guess like condensed or tightly together that we would go from the ground, which are typically more mobility relaxed
Mm-hmm.
type of movements, to a half kneeling or to a quadruped, up to your feet. When you get to the feet, it's more complex dynamic movements, and I'm not giving you any rest times during this, so it's going to be like, all right, let's do a split or a half kneeling rotation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd just be rotating my trunk, more mobility, not too dynamic. Okay, now let's do a reverse lunge with the overhead reach. Give me 5 each side. And then we're going to do jumping split squats for 5 each side as well. And then we're going to finish with 3 max effort vertical jumps on each side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I've hit a lot of my movement capacities if we're going to have a unilateral day. I've You're going to be sweating and breathing a little hard if you do all that shit back to back to back. So I've increased
Hold on,
uh,
pause, because I think
heart rate.
some people at home are shocked. You do max effort jumps in your warm up?
Yeah. Why is that shocking?
That's like a no-no sometimes because it's that you shouldn't just jump right into it. It's something I've seen that around the strength and conditioning sphere where people get upset about people throwing in max effort stuff in warm-ups.
Yeah,
It
whatever.
was a joke. I agree with
Yeah,
you.
whatever. Um, well, now I have the urge to defend myself. All right. Um, yeah, so I've done a couple things there. So I like getting the heart rate elevated. I like mirroring the patterns of the day,
Yep.
right? If we're gonna have a unilateral day, I'm gonna definitely do some split squat or some single leg stability in my warm up. I like to add and end with dynamic like neurological stimulus. So whether that's fast feet, jumps, reactive timing, sprints, whatever, right? You can start all that to finish your warm up, right? Okay, then um, we're on a concurrent day. I'm gonna do a little bit of a
Wait, hold
power
on.
block.
Why are we on a concurrent day? What does concurrent mean?
Oh man, you're making me really. This is a homework assignment right here. You're just
I
making me
know.
explain all
You're
my
doing a
vocab.
very good job. That's why I keep kicking it to you because I like when you take over these episodes. So go. What is a
All right,
concurrent program and why are
concurrent
they doing it?
program. We're 10 weeks out, so I think I have enough time to increase all of my capacities and work on all of my basement level qualities, not necessarily just height in my ceilings. So we're gonna try and get better at everything today. We're gonna get better at power. We're gonna get better at strength. We're gonna get better at capacity. So training all three of those concurrently is what makes it a concurrent program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, 10 weeks is like fringing on where I wouldn't want to do a concurrent program, but if this athlete's had 2 weeks off, it's maybe not going to be bad to get them back into it, and depending on their training level. If they're
Mm-hmm.
not super well trained, most of my athletes are not super well trained in the weight room. I don't know if that's heresy.
And
Concurrent, they
then,
can get better all three qualities at the same time.
yeah.
So active dynamic warm up. It's a concurrent day. So I'm going to start with a power block. That's going to be more of my speed strength, more of my high neurological energy demanding day.
Mhm.
Um, so I can do something like throw med balls. I can do something like box jumps. I can do something like a landmine punch. Do some like kettlebell swings there. I could do something like broad jumps, something like um, again, yeah, med ball throws. Those
Burpee
are kind of my
box jumps.
yeah, well, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else I would throw in there. Like maybe power cleans, but
Well, and
you know,
so this is where me and you don't disagree because I see your side, you see my side, but I also think that this first block, so to say, could be used for the main priority, right?
yeah,
If the main priority has to be strength for the phase we're in, like that's the number one thing we're working on, that's where I would like to put the main priority is that first block because that's when
yeah,
you're able to actually use as much energy as possible. So it's
yeah,
like it's kind of like a keep the main thing concept in my
sure,
mind. So
sure. And so my argument there would be, I want to put power first because it's more neurologically demanding, right? I don't want to tax everything I have into my excellent strength, and then when I come back to my med ball throw, there's no actual pop to it.
for sure.
So that and um, again, if I want to touch it at all. Sometimes in some contexts, like this power block is just completely erased because it's not important.
Right.
But with a fight coming up, I think it's pretty important to hit something like a power block there. So let's say we do a med ball, shot put thrown to the wall. We're going to do three each side of those. Then we're going to step back. We're going to hit some single leg hops for stability and a little unilateral power. And then we're going to do maybe like a supine shoulder external rotation. One, for a little bit of mobility, because I'm sure my athletes don't have great mobility. Two, filling in the rest break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is something we didn't really talk about. But anytime we're training maximal strength or maximal power, we have to have like at least a
Yeah.
60 to 90 second like rest break, so that when we come back to the next set, it's still of that high quality. If we don't take any of those breaks, then we're gonna start getting into lower capacities, and then we're just doing work for work's sake. We're not
Right. Then
actually
we're doing
adapting.
shitty work capacity.
Yep. After that power block, I'm probably gonna go into two different strength blocks. The strength blocks, like you said, this would be your main thing. So this is kind of what I see as the meat and potatoes of the day. It's gonna be like our middle 20 to 30 minutes of the workout. Um, we're gonna load up, let's say, a trap bar deadlift paired with, depending where we're at, we could contrast that with a box jump and then add in another mobility to fill in our rest time. Or just talking bullshit for our
Mm-hmm.
rest. That's fine with me too.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, you only have to
excuse me.
shadow box for rest.
Shadow blast rest. Yeah, active recovery all day. Um, then let's hit something like a landmine strict press. Um, maybe contrast that, maybe not. Maybe we're out of juice for the power by this time. Um, either way, it doesn't matter. Um, and then I'm gonna finish with like almost a aerobic power block because the way I like to periodize or program my conditioning is like 12 to 8 weeks out we're doing aerobic power, so
Mhm.
that's your 4 to 5 minute real hard push. 8 to 4 weeks out we're doing some lactic capacity, so time frame gets shorter, intensity goes up. So we got some lactic capacity that's like 90 seconds to 3 minutes of like a hard grind. And then 0 to 4 weeks out I like to train a lot of lactic power. um, and this is all layered in with different conditioning qualities too, but these are like my main emphases. Lactic power is like a 40 to 60-second push. Um, and then we can focus more into that on our last block, which would be our aerobic power. So I can create a movement type of circuit that's going to elucidate like a highest maintainable pace for 4 minutes, or we can just literally go on an air bike and like how high a pace can you maintain for 4 minutes, right?
Right. You can mix up whether you want it to be like cyclical or mixed modal, right? So you can either do it on one individual device or one modality. So you're doing 4 minutes of, this is a terrible example, but jump squats.
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah,
fuck that.
terrible example.
Oh,
But that
rough.
was the first exercise that popped into my head. But really, it would typically be on like a conditioning modality, like a air bike or like a ski or something like that.
Yeah.
Or we can get into something called mixed modal, which is you're going to put a few different exercises together, training similar qualities, and you're cycling through that for 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there you go. That's a strength training day for a 10 week out striker. And that can be for a kickboxing fight. That could be for a Muay Thai fight. That could be straight up boxing fight. I might focus a little bit more on the upper body power dynamics if it's just boxing. But
Yeah. Well, what's cool about this is it shows people, yes, that is what it is, and this is what we do all day. But there's so many different variables that play in
mm-hmm,
to thinking about that, right? It's not just put different exercises in place, which is what a lot of people choose to do if they're doing it on their own.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, and like again, like I think that's so from like a business perspective, like again, we have no problem sharing that type of information
yeah,
because that's not what separates us. That makes it different. It's not
right.
about
That's the bare
what you're doing,
bones.
right? It's like how are you doing all of this,
Yeah.
right? Because like I can say do a trap bar jump squat or trap bar jump shrug, right? How and what you do when I say do that are the more important things than I'm doing this exercise,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think the you got to hit it from two different uh, lenses. You have to one be able to build that program and have purpose behind everything, but then you have to be able to execute it, which is the more important part. Because and I'll round this out with a real philosophical quote here. Uh, bad program executed at the highest level is way better
That's true.
than a great program poorly executed.
Boom, roasted.
Boom, there it is. Strength conditioning for strikers, just do it. Find somebody that's good, trust them. It's a invaluable trait is to be good at your fucking job. So be good at your
Peace out, losers.
job.